Welcome back to American Made. On today's episode, we are going to discuss how to hold parts that aren't flat, they might not have anything easy to pick up off of, and kind of discuss design for manufacturability. My history, if you guys have watched the shop tour video, I was an engineer. I had the constant battle between machinist, toolmaker, engineer, so I kind of said there needs to be a blend between both, and that's really how manufacturing should work. So let's get into it. We're going to show you a little bit of a piece that is kind of odd, and I'm going to show you some features that were added to aid in the manufacturability process. So this is the part we're going to discuss. So this is through operation, the first operation. As you can see, there's quite a big carrier, so most of this will get ripped off. We just held this in Talon style jaws, but that was that. So on the original, we didn't have these features here. So this actually wasn't there at all. So this came off and it just kind of blended in. Same thing on this side. You can see this wasn't there. So this wall, see if I can get that in focus. This wall continued all the way over. So what we did was we laser scanned this, did some CAD work, and then we actually 3D printed one and saw that we have a lot of room to add features here to make this a little easier for us to manufacture. So we added these bosses. This is actually clearanced out because there is a piece that we had to clear. This side, no effect there. But what we ended up doing was we added a counterbore hole, and then we tapped these. So on the fixture, we actually put a shoulder bolt through it and then put that shoulder in there as well to take some of that side load. So here we added 6 threaded connections to actually hold this, because nothing's really flat on this item. So this surface curves both this way as well as in the X direction if you're looking at it X and Y. This is not flat. It's also not flat this way. So the only thing that's really flat on this is these inside pockets, but these aren't parallel. So like these two surfaces, this surface and this surface, aren't parallel to each other. So it gets a little goofy. So we added these features, and this one's actually scrap part. So you can see broke a tap in there. Thread mill, don't tap. But yeah, so we added these to make this a little more manufacturable. So I really like doing this method of adding bolt holes wherever you can. And I'm going to show you another example now. So here, this is the other side. So what's going to happen is we're going to remove the carrier, and then we're going to do a lot of 3D surfacing. This part will take quite a bit of time just because there's so much 3D surfacing. But as you can see, this part doesn't rock. So what we're going to do is we actually use this as a datum for X and Y, and the bottom surface that this mounts on is Z. So I'll show you the fixture in a second as well. But so this was a case where there's nothing flat, there's nothing to really hold on to, so we added that those bosses on both sides, and then added those tapped holes to aid in the manufacturing. So for that piece in question, we took a piece of Mike 6 plate. It's super flat. I didn't have to do any facing or anything to hold it or to make sure it's flat. I checked we're within 1/10 of flatness across the whole surface. So I'll be able to bolt this to the table and then have the item sit here. So a good idea also, I know now this is the passenger side fixture. X positive is this direction, Y positive in the up direction, and then this hole will actually be my XY of the fixture. So when I flipped this, I actually knew that. So this will be the flat surface that the part sits on, being Z0, and then we'll use that XY of the hole in the piece to actually locate for the op2. So here we have the fixture flipped over. So you can see the part down there, and there's the part. So what we're going to do is we're going to bolt these together using shoulder bolts. So I get it roughly lined up, and then I've got these shoulder bolts. So one thing I've learned is if you can lose one, you're going to lose one for sure. So I've got 7. I only need 6 for this fixture. Got an extra if anyone strips out or anything happens to one. I just bought an extra. And actually, because I'm paranoid Paulie, I ordered another set of 6 just in case. So we're going to bolt this together, and then we will flip the whole item over, and then I'll give you guys an idea of seeing it on the fixture. One thing I want to highlight, in all of my experiences with shoulder bolts, anytime you can, we're going to try and shift this down, anytime you can try and bury the shoulder bolt also into the item, so on your shoulder, I always try to go in the item too. So I actually have this relieved. So that when I'm threaded in, the shoulder actually goes into the item as well, just to give me a little bit of extra rigidity. So I'm not only putting pressure on the threads, I'm also putting pressure on that shoulder. So I think this is a little bit more rigid, so that's why I prefer to do that. So instead of all your pressure, when the tool is coming through, all your pressure pulling against just the threaded section, you're gonna have the shouldered in here as well as the fixture, kind of taking some of that load to kind of add some rigidity. So here we have it. Everything's bolted together, everything's there. Here you can see what I meant by those bosses. So the bosses are on the plate, and they are ensuring that it sits flat. So now I have a datum of Z. So now I can say this is Z, this is X and Y, and because I am the real life Tommy boy, I will always leave myself another note just in case. So I leave a note just because sometimes I don't have the machine ready, the machine's running another job. So I leave that note just to make it simple for me. So here you again, X positive, Y positive. Just wrote it as a little bit of redundancy, not the leanest option, but that way I don't forget. Or if I'm really rushing through and I don't see this and I'm not paying attention, that I have it for later. So once this goes in, I'll get you guys some videos, and then this part I can't show photos of until the customer releases it on their end, but I wanted to show you guys a little bit of how to hold something that is complicated. So I will show you guys the model so you guys can get a little bit of an idea to see once it's done being machined and I can release the full final. There's no NDA, customers just asked I don't post this until it's ready, but I'll show you guys some of the features and how you can kind of see it. So in the machine, we're gonna get it all set up, and I'll show you guys actually what I mean. So I have not cleaned out this machine. I just got back from a trip from my day job, so I've got the machine ready, and I've got the jaws ready on the machine. So this is just for my fourth. It's not actually bolted on right now, but you'll see what I do here, especially when I do some of these longer pieces. Once the machine gets up and I can reference it out, we'll see. So these are legit just hockey pucks. So I'll explain these in a second once the machine references out. Because I don't have clamp rails or something to hold longer items, and for this, because I have the umbrella style tool changer, I need all of the Z clearance I can get. Clearance being relative, and you'll see what I mean in a second. So we'll get this machine homed out, and then I'll explain it. So once that goes in, it'll be a little bit taller. So if I had clamp rails, it would sit quite a bit higher. And then what I have an issue of is, I'll show you guys the tool changer in a minute. We'll reference tool tray quick, and then we'll put that tool away, and you'll actually see it. So when this tool changer operates strictly on air, so it comes in to grab the tool, so we'll actually tell the machine to store the current tool. So you'll get an idea here what I mean. So when you have long hanging tools and your item sits up tall, you'll see it can actually cause an issue. So the issue I mean is when you have an item that's high and you have to come in to change tools, you have to set your G30, or you can hand program it to go off in the corner so that you can change tools. So if this part, I have more travel in the X, yeah, I could move this part a little bit in the X, and I would probably have some concerns here. So when I run vices on this, because some of my parts get pretty tall, it's really nice to have that option. So I always specifically like to keep things as low to the table as I can, just to make sure that I have no issues with tool change. And I'll show you what I mean on my other machine now. So on this machine, so to give you guys an example, it's just a standard vise, 3-axis vise. So when this part's in, some of these tools get really close to it. So I'll show you guys now. I'll actually swap the part out and you can see what it looks like. So here's the part through the first operation. So thread milling, a little bit of items. Yes, this is a lathe part. Me no likey lathe, just kidding. I don't have a lathe big enough to do this, so I just do it in the mill. So just to get it roughly there for you guys to see. Let's do that. So out of caution, I've set G30 here. So as you can see, spindle is past the part and tool changer can come in and theoretically have no issues, but that's just out of caution. So because I've done this part so many times, I know this will clear. But if you can see over there, here in this thread mill sits quite a bit lower. So when this whole carousel rotates, it's always a little bit of a, we're gonna make sure, you know, a little bit of a concern to make sure. So I always, when I'm running parts in these taller, and I know I have some longer tools, I always program my G30, or depending on if I'm really rushing through, I will just manually program it after every tool change to go over. Don't ask me why, it's how my brain works. So that's why, like I said, on this part, what we're gonna do is we're just running on these to keep it as low to the table as possible. And to be honest, I don't have clamp rails that can actually raise it up, so this is my only option. So going back to the hockey pucks, so one thing about these hockey pucks is when you have these long distances, it's really nice to try to eliminate chatter. I bought a bag of like 30 of these, so as you can see, they get chewed up. Not really that overly that concerned, but I'll clean them off before I run this. But sometimes if there's a little bit of an issue, so these are almost the perfect height for these rails. Sometimes depending on, I don't know, different factors or the variance in the hockey puck, what I'll do, and this tip came from the Instant Machinist community, is just some painter's tape. So sometimes I'll get two that I know are good, I'll put the item in, and then I'll try to slide one through, and if it slides through too easily, I'll actually put some painter's tape on there. So I'll take some brake cleaner, clean it, layer that up, and then I'll slide it under to where it's just snug, and then I'll unclamp the item, put the pucks back in, put it down, clamp it, and then we should be good to go. So just a little bit of a tip. Don't know if you want to call that fixturing, as it's really just vibration reduction and to eliminate any chatter, especially when I'm going these long distances that I'm spanning. I just like it. Kind of helps with surface finish as well. So design for manufacturability. It's one of my personal beliefs that is one of the most important things you can do when designing a part, when sending an item to a machine shop. Especially if you're new or you're green in the industry, be open to some constructive criticism. It's going to happen, some things that might help you, and then you can use that information further along the lines. And maybe on your next project, you can think, hey, you know, I could probably drill out this corner, or I could make this radius a standard size, things like that. So again, we're always here to help. I often say that you want to work with a machine shop that's going to give you the best advice. If you give them something that's not the most manufacturable, and then they send you a really high price, it's something to worry about, you're like, whoa, I didn't think it was going to be that much money. You know, ask the question, hey, is there anything we can do to maybe cut some cost out? And then hopefully, if you're working with a good shop, they'll give you some feedback, things that they would do or tweak to maybe drive down some cost. Now, if you're trying to battle on a $10 item, hey, I really like it to be $2, you're probably not going to get a good response, so just be cautious. But just things to think about when you're trying to get your item made or when you're sending an item. And again, we see it every day as machinists. Being an engineer by trade, I'll be honest, I was guilty of it when I first got into the industry. They don't teach those things to the engineers. So hope you guys liked this video. Curious to see some of the things you guys have experienced, some other things. Drop a comment below. As always, like, subscribe, turn on notifications to Practical Machinist for all our next videos.